We've all been there, haven't we? Those stretches where days blur into one another, and you convince yourself you've got the script of your life all mapped out. For me, that was how things stood with my son Marcus. We'd always shared a solid bond, the kind that doesn't demand fireworks to prove it's real. But as the years ticked by, it settled into something comfortable, predictable. Phone calls about the weather, quick lunches squeezed between his work meetings and my volunteer shifts. Nothing wrong with it exactly, but nothing electric either. Then came that getaway, the one I figured would be just another checkmark on the calendar. Little did I know, it would rewrite the whole story. I have to confess, the idea didn't thrill me at first. My circle of friends, those eternal optimists, had been nudging me for months about these bonding escapes. It's magic, they'd insist over coffee. A reset button for the soul. I rolled my eyes every time. My husband, dear Tom, had left us 5 years back, taken too soon by that quiet thief we call illness. Travel had lost its shine after that. The world felt a shade too vast without him by my side. And Marcus? At 34, he was knee-deep in his architecture firm, building dreams for other people while chasing his own. Spending a weekend alone with him sounded less like adventure and more like an extended, polite conversation. But when he called one rainy Tuesday, his voice carrying that gentle lilt I'd know anywhere, I caved. "Come on, Elena," he said. "A quick jaunt to the coast. Just you and me, no agendas. It'll clear the cobwebs." How could I say no? That self-sacrificing streak in me, the one that always prioritized everyone else's map over my own, kicked in before reason could catch up. So we threw a few things into bags, mine light on outfits, heavy on books I never cracked, and headed out. The spot he'd picked was a weathered beach house perched on rugged cliffs overlooking the Pacific, the sort of place that whispers secrets to the wind. Tucked away down a winding dirt road lined with twisted cypresses, it was worlds from the bustle of our city lives, yet near enough that cell service flickered like a bad habit. The house itself was all salt-kissed wood and wide verandas, with windows framing endless waves crashing against jagged rocks below. We pulled up as dusk painted the sky in bruised purples and fiery oranges, the air thick with brine and the faint, wild tang of seaweed. Marcus had handled it all: the reservation, the stocked pantry, even a playlist of soft jazz humming from the speakers as we unloaded. I watched him haul the cooler inside, his broad shoulders easy under the weight, and felt a pang of gratitude mixed with something softer, like pride laced with wonder. He still anticipated my needs, just like when he was a boy bringing me tea during late-night story hours. We eased into the evening like old shoes, comfortable but a touch unfamiliar after so long in storage. The house wrapped around us with its creaky floors and the rhythmic roar of the surf outside, a lullaby that drowned out the static in my head. Dinner was simple: grilled salmon from the local market, crusty bread, and a salad of greens that tasted like they'd been plucked that morning. We ate on the veranda as stars pricked the velvet sky, the chill off the water nipping at our sleeves. Conversation flowed easy at first: his latest project, a eco-lodge in the Redwoods, my garden club's latest fiasco with the prize roses. But as the plates cleared and we lingered over herbal tea steaming in mismatched mugs, a hush fell. Not the awkward kind, but the sort that invites truths to surface, unbidden. Marcus set his mug down with a soft clink, his fingers lingering on the handle as if anchoring himself. I glanced up, catching the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes, the same one he'd worn as a teen confessing a dented fender. "Elena," he started, then paused, rubbing the back of his neck. "There's something rattling around in my head I need to unpack." My heart did a little stutter, curiosity sharpening the edges of the moment. I'd heard that timbre before, laced with vulnerability. "Spill it, then," I replied, keeping my tone light, though my pulse betrayed me. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, the lantern light carving shadows across his face. "It's us. The way we've been orbiting each other since Dad. Well, it's steady, don't get me wrong, but it's like we're both tiptoeing around the real stuff. The heart of it. I don't want to keep skating on the surface. I miss diving deeper, like we used to." His words landed like pebbles in still water, rippling out to stir things I'd long let settle. I blinked, caught off guard. Marcus had always been my rock, the steady one who checked in without fuss, but I'd assumed he was content in our quiet routine. Seeing him like this, open, almost raw, unlocked a floodgate in me. Love swelled first, warm and fierce, chased by a sharp twinge of regret. Had I been so wrapped in my own shadows that I missed his? Oh, Marcus, I murmured, reaching across to squeeze his hand, my voice threading thin. I had no idea it weighed on you like that. Grief's had me in a chokehold, hasn't it? I pulled back without meaning to, built walls I didn't even see. He squeezed back, his grip firm but kind, a small smile breaking through. Hey, no fault here. It's just, life's short. Dad taught us that the hard way. I want us to grab the good parts while we can, the messy, real talks that stick. That night, as the fire in the stone hearth crackled and popped, sending sparks dancing up the chimney like fireflies, we unraveled. We spoke of Tom in ways we hadn't dared before. Not just the polished eulogies, but the quirky edges, his habit of whistling off-key show tunes in the shower, the way he'd burn toast but swear it added character. Laughter bubbled up, unexpected and healing, mingling with tears that traced silent paths down our cheeks. Marcus shared how he'd bottled his anger at the unfairness of it all, channeling it into blueprints that screamed permanence. I confessed the hollow ache of empty mornings, how I'd stare at Tom's side of the closet and wonder if joy was a door I'd locked behind me. Hours slipped by, the ocean's endless murmur underscoring our words, until exhaustion tugged us toward sleep. As I slipped under the quilts in my loft room, the salt air cool against my skin, I realized this wasn't merely a vacation. It was excavation, digging up buried pieces of us, piecing them back brighter. Dawn crept in soft the next morning, gray light filtering through gauzy curtains, carrying the scent of damp earth and distant rain. I padded downstairs to find Marcus already at the kitchen island, coaxing coffee from an old percolator, the rich aroma weaving through the air like a promise. We settled at the scarred oak table overlooking the cliffs, mugs steaming between us, watching mist veil the horizon where sea met sky. Silence wrapped us companionably, broken only by the drip of condensation from the eaves. Then, as if on cue, Marcus tilted his head, his gaze thoughtful. Tell me something true, Elena. What's a dream you've shelved, one that still whispers to you on quiet nights? The question hung there, simple yet piercing, pulling me inward. At 59, I'd tallied accomplishments like trophies. A career in teaching that shaped young minds, a home filled with laughter before it echoed with absence. But beneath it all, a flicker remained, a longing I'd dismissed as frivolous. I traced the rim of my mug, the porcelain warm under my fingertips. Writing, I said at last, the admission tasting like dust on my tongue, long unused. Stories, really. Not the grand novels, but the small ones, the kind that capture fleeting moments, like the way sunlight fractures on waves or the ache of a half-remembered song. Marcus's eyes lit, surprise mingling with delight. Why haven't you chased it? His voice held no judgment, only genuine curiosity, like he was unearthing a gem I'd forgotten I owned. I shrugged, a half-smile tugging despite the vulnerability. Life's current swept me along, you know. Lesson plans to grade, meals to plan, then holding it all together after. It felt selfish, carving out time for whims when the world needed stitching. He leaned in, his expression softening to something tender, almost fierce. That's not selfish. That's breathing. You've poured so much into everyone else, us, the kids you taught, even the stray cats you fed. What if this is your turn to refill? His words pierced deeper than I expected, stirring a quiet ache I'd mistaken for resignation. Here was my son, this grown man with calluses from drafting tables and a life blooming beyond my reach, seeing me not just as the anchor, but as a sail catching wind. A lump rose in my throat, emotion thickening the air between us. You make it sound possible, I whispered, half laughing through the tightness. Like I could still step into that world. He grinned, that boyish flash that echoed Tom's. Because you can. Start small, a journal, a short piece. Hell, I'll read the first draft if you let me. We lingered there as the mist burned off, the sun gilding the waves in gold, and for the first time in years, possibility felt less like a ghost and more like a horizon I could reach. The day unfolded like a gift unwrapped slowly, savoring each layer. We ventured down the cliff path, boots crunching on gravel strewn with seashells like scattered jewels. The trail twisted through scrubby dunes fringed with wild grasses that whispered in the breeze, leading to a secluded cove where the water lapped turquoise against black sand. The air hummed with gulls' cries and the distant bark of seals, a symphony wild and unscripted. We walked without hurry, pausing to skip stones. Mine plunking lamely after 2 hops, his skimming 7 drawing whoops of mock victory. Laughter came easier now, a bridge over the chasms grief had carved. At the water's edge, we shed shoes and let the foam tickle our toes, cold and alive. "Remember that summer in Oregon?" Marcus asked, voice carrying over the surf. "Dad teaching us to build sandcastles with moats that actually held the tide?" I nodded, the memory blooming vivid. Tom's hands caked in wet sand, Marcus's delighted squeals as the walls stood firm. "He'd say they were fortresses for dreamers," I added, my chest tight with fondness. We stood there, letting the waves erase our footprints. And in that erasure, I felt old scars soften. By midday, hunger drew us back. But not before a detour to a tide pool teeming with starfish like crimson blooms and anemones waving fragile greetings. Marcus knelt, pointing out a hermit crab scuttling sideways, its shell a borrowed home. "Life finds a way to keep moving, huh?" he mused, and I wondered if he meant the crab or us. Lunch was a picnic on the veranda, cheese and figs from the market, paired with cider crisp as autumn. We talked of futures then, tentative sketches rather than blueprints. He spoke of expanding his firm, maybe incorporating sustainable designs that honored places like this coast. I shared a spark of an idea, a community workshop for budding writers, right in our neighborhood, turning my shelved dream outward. "You'd be brilliant at it," he said, eyes alight. "Passing that torch, it's you, Elena, all heart and fire." As afternoon waned, we wandered the house's hidden nooks, a sunroom cluttered with faded paperbacks, a loft with a hammock swaying like an invitation to daydream. I unearthed an old sketchpad from a dusty shelf, its pages yellowed but blank ones beckoning. On impulse, I grabbed a pencil, tracing the curve of a wave crashing beyond the window. Marcus watched from the doorway, silent approval in his stance. "See? That wasn't so hard," he teased when I showed him the rough lines. Dinner that evening was pasta tossed with clams and garlic, the kitchen filling with steam and stories. We ate by candlelight as twilight bled into night, the beam from a distant lighthouse sweeping the dark like a searching eye. Conversation turned introspective again, circling back to Tom but forward too, how his absence had reshaped us, not broken but reforged. "You ever worry we'll fade like echoes?" I asked, twirling linguine on my fork, the question slipping out unvarnished. Marcus paused, fork midway, his gaze steady. "All the time. But trips like this? Their reminders were solid. Not perfect, but real. And hey, we're not done writing the story." His assurance wrapped around me, warm as the wine we shared. Later, as embers glowed in the hearth and the house settled into snores of wind through eaves, I journaled by lamplight. First words in years, halting but honest. A vignette of the cove laced with the salt of memory and the sweet sting of now. Sleep came deep that night, dreamless and restorative. The following dawn brought rain, a soft patter that turned the world silver and hushed. We brewed tea instead of coffee, its chamomile notes soothing as we bundled in sweaters and claimed the window seats. Sheets of water blurred the view, but inside, clarity sharpened. Marcus pulled out a deck of cards, old ones from Tom's fishing trips, and we played gin rummy, trash-talking like kids. Loser drew a truth card. Mine revealed a fear of irrelevance in my later years. His, a quiet doubt about balancing ambition with roots. We laid them bare, no judgments, just nods of understanding. "You're relevant to me," he said simply when my turn passed. "Always will be." The rain eased by noon, leaving air washed clean, and we braved the slick path to the beach. Waves thundered now, frothy and fierce, mirroring the release we'd tapped. That afternoon, inspiration struck. Marcus suggested we claim a ritual. Every visit here, we'd add a layer to the house. A poem etched in driftwood, a photo pinned to the wall. "Build a legacy of us," he called it. I countered with starting my writing that week, promising a first submission by month's end. He vowed to join a class on coastal ecology, honoring Tom's love for the sea. Laughter sealed it, sealing us tighter. Evening brought a bonfire on the strand, flames leaping against the dusk as we roasted marshmallows sticky sweet. Stories poured out, Marcus's college mishaps, my wild college days backpacking Europe with barely a plan. Under the smoke-scented sky, stars wheeling overhead, I felt the earth's turn sync with my own. A quiet revolution. Our last full day dawned crystalline, the coast a jewel box of blues and greens. We hiked the headlands, wind whipping our hair, stopping at overlooks where seals basked on rocks like ancient sunbathers. At one vista, Marcus turned to me, voice cutting through the gusts. "This place, it's magic, isn't it? But it's not the cliffs or the waves. It's what they pull out of us." I nodded, throat full. You've pulled more out of me than you know, son. Thank you for seeing I needed this. His hug was brief but bone deep, the kind that says everything words fumble. Back at the house, we packed with deliberation, folding clothes around mementos, a feather-smooth stone, my sketch pad now thumbed with promise. Dinner was a feast. Lobster cracked with mallets, corn charred to perfection, eaten with the deliberate slowness of savoring finales. As forks clinked and wine glasses chimed, Marcus raised his. To more than routines. To depths and dreams. I clinked back, eyes misting. To us. Evolving. Enduring. We lingered late, plotting returns, quarterly escapes no matter the season. And the writing, he prompted. Promise? Sworn, I replied. As the fire died to coals and the house sighed into quiet, I reflected on the woman who'd arrived, guarded, adrift. She'd glimpsed her reflection in tide pools, seen possibilities ripple out. This wasn't closure. It was ignition. Departure morning broke with fog clinging low, the drive back a reluctant unraveling. Marcus navigated the curves, radio low with folksy tunes, while I jotted notes in my journal, seeds for stories born here. Silence between us hummed content, punctuated by plans. Coffee next week, my first writing group meetup. Pulling into my driveway, the city reclaiming us, he turned with that familiar grin. We did good, Elena. This is just chapter 1. I hugged him fierce, breathing in the faint salt still on his jacket. Damn right. And the best parts are ahead. In the weeks since, that trip echoes like a compass. I've enrolled in a writing circle, words flowing freer than I dared hope, tales of cliffs and confessions, woven with love's quiet threads. Marcus calls more, not just check-ins, but shares, sketches of his latest build, inspired by our coastal lines. We've scheduled another escape, this time to inland canyons, chasing new horizons. Grief hasn't vanished. It softens, a companion rather than captor. I've am learning, that bonds aren't static monuments, but living paths, meandering yet true. And in rediscovering Marcus, I've reclaimed Elena, dreamer, doer, daughter of the sea and stars. Life's script? It's ours to improvise, one heartfelt line at a time. No more predictable pages, just endless open sea. But let's linger a bit longer on those echoes, shall we? Because what started as a simple coastal retreat unfolded layers I hadn't anticipated, like peeling back the fog to reveal hidden coves. Take that second evening after our bonfire confessions. I'd wandered the veranda alone while Marcus tidied the kitchen, the night air cool and laced with the mineral bite of low tide. Stars carpeted the sky, vast and indifferent, yet in their sprawl, I felt smallness yield to connection. Tom's voice flickered in memory, not a ghost, but a guide. Chase the pull, love. The heart knows the way. I'd ignored it too long, mistaking duty for destiny. Now, with Marcus's encouragement ringing fresh, I pulled out my phone, signal spotty but stubborn, and texted a friend from my teaching days, the one who dabbled in lit mags. Ever thought of starting a writer's nook? Her reply pinged back swift. Overdue. Let's plot. It was a spark, tiny but insistent, fanning into plan by dawn. Marcus noticed the shift next morning over blueberry pancakes, his fork pausing mid-air. You're glowing, he observed, half question, half statement. I laughed, syrup sweet on my tongue. Blame the sea air. Or you're meddling. He feigned offense, but his eyes danced. Meddling? Nah, that's called being the best son ever. We bantered through breakfast, then set out for a longer trek, to a lighthouse perched on the farthest point, its white tower stark against the roiling gray. The path climbed steep, wildflowers nodding in the breeze, poppies like spilled embers, lupines tall and defiant. Sweat beaded our brows, breath sinking in rhythm, and halfway up, we collapsed on a bench carved from driftwood, overlooking foam-flecked expanse. Dad would have loved this view, Marcus said, voice rough with the climb and something deeper. I nodded, tracing a shell in my palm. He did, remember? That weekend we chased storms here as kids. You built that epic kite that actually flew. Remembrance opened floodgates anew. We spoke of Tom's quirks, the way he'd collect sea glass like treasures, polishing them into mosaics for our mantel. Marcus admitted he'd kept a jar of them in his apartment, untouched until now. A talisman against loneliness. Brings him close without the hurt, he explained. I shared my own secret. A locket with his handwriting, a grocery list scrawled in haste. Milk, bread, love you. that I'd worn under my blouse for years. Silly, maybe, I said. He shook his head. Sacred. At the lighthouse summit, we circled the base, the keeper's cat eyeing us warily from a coil of rope. The view stretched infinite, ocean merging with sky, no seams. Perspective, Marcus murmured. From up here, everything connects. Descending buoyed, we vowed to scatter a pinch of Tom's ashes here someday, a quiet rite when ready. Afternoon brought indolence, books and hammocks, the creak of ropes a metronome to pages turned. I dove into a novel of wanderers, its prose, mirroring my stirrings while Marcus pored over a architecture tome, sketching marginalia, curves echoing the coast's contours. Rain threatened but held off, granting us a siesta laced with dreams of waves and words. Dinner was improvisational, fresh sourdough toasted over the fire, topped with smoked salmon and dill from the herb box. We ate cross-legged on the rug, flames painting our faces warm, and delved into lighter realms. Favorite films, his, gritty indies, mine, sweeping epics, childhood crushes, mine on a fictional pirate, his blushingly omitted. Laughter peeled back years, revealing the boy in the man, the mother in the friend. Night deepened with stargazing from a blanket on the lawn, dew-kissed grass cool beneath us. Marcus traced constellations, his finger arcing the dome, Orion's belt, Cassiopeia's throne. Dad taught me those, he said softly. Said they were maps for lost nights. I wove stories around them, myths retold with twists, turning gods into everyday heroes. One tale spun of a widow who sailed starlit seas, finding not gold, but herself. Marcus listened rapt, then added verses, our voices blending in impromptu verse. As chill deepened, we retreated inside, cocoa steaming, to a board game unearthed from a cupboard, Scrabble, letters worn from Tom's competitive streaks. Tiles, clacked, words built. Resilient, I played, 7 letters strong. Apt, he countered with reconnect, earning a triple word score and a triumphant fist pump. By game's end, the board brimmed with our lexicon, hope, heal, horizon, a mosaic of us. Sleep claimed me with visions of ink on waves, waking renewed. Our final hike meandered to hidden grottos, sea caves yawning like ancient mouths, echoes amplifying our whispers. Inside one, bioluminescent plankton glowed faint blue, a secret underworld. Magic, I breathed. Marcus nodded. Like us, hidden lights waiting for the right tide. Emerging to sunlight, we gathered pebbles, one for Tom's jar, one for my desk, talismans of transformation. Lunch was seaside, picnic of wraps and fruit, eaten with toes in surf, gulls scavenging crumbs. Conversation circled dreams again. My writing nook evolving to include guest spots for Marcus's eco-talks, a fusion of our worlds. Collaborators, he dubbed us, toasting with water bottles, packing that Eve felt ceremonial, clothes folded around artifacts, the sketch pad thicker now, a poem scrawled on envelope back. Dinner, candlelit risotto creamy with mushrooms foraged. Nearby, wine-loosening tongues for toasts, profound and profane. To cliffs climbed and caves explored, Marcus began. To words unspoken no more. Mine followed. To sons who see souls, and mothers who learn to soar. As embers waned, we sat porch swinging, the ocean's hush a lullaby. This isn't goodbye, he said, hand on mine. It's see you in the story. Dawn's departure was tear-tinged but triumphant, the road home a ribbon unspooling possibility. Back in rhythm with city pulse, the shift sustains. My first piece, a coastal elegy laced with hope, lands in a local journal, Marcus's proud text arriving instant. Knew you had it. We meet Sundays for brunches, brimming plans. His firm's green initiative, my workshop's inaugural night. Another trip brews. Desert sands under starfire, contrast to our sea soul. Grief? A tide now, ebbing to reveal treasures. Marcus and I? Not just kin, but co-adventurers. Charting depths anew. Life's narrative unfolds collaborative, rich with surprise. And me? Elena, once adrift, now anchored in flow, writing, loving, alive to the pull. The coast called, we answered. What's your whisper waiting for?